Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and we now welcome you to the third keynote of ISWI 2017. When talking about global justice, when discussing how we could establish global justice, the role of education is arguably indispensable. I have the great pleasure of introducing you to Professor Alicia Cabezudo. She has dedicated her life to peace education and has worked around the world to shape education systems at different levels. Her enthusiasm for activism is admirable, and she is also a prominent leader of the International Peace Bureau. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cabezudo.
Okay. So I'm going to use this? No, this.
Right. Yeah.
Hello. Good afternoon. You see, I am like a robot because I have something here. Wild, okay? So, thank you to be here. I'm very glad to be in Ilmenau. It's my first time, so I hope it is not the last one. It depends mainly on my presentation, so I shall do my best for you, all right? And do you hear me correctly? Yes? Yes, because it is here, a little bit hidden. All right. So, yes, my field of work is a little bit different, at the same relation and linked with the field of my colleagues that you have heard yesterday in brilliant presentations. My colleague from yesterday and from today, they have developed the main themes and subjects and issues that they are all part today of global education and global justice and culture of peace education. But the story was not so simple. And so in my first part of the presentation, I like to try to put you down on the field that is, as I said, a kind of new field in education. So when we started working on history and education on social issues, we have to try to envelope, in a way, to package all the main themes that were worrying the world, which was a lot, as you can imagine. So on that time, and particularly when the field started in social sciences, I mean, talking about global issues, it was just after the Second World War. So after the terrible trauma coming from that war, the social sciences started to develop more, and then in social sciences, the education field started to ask itself, what are we going to do with all this? Okay, all these things are happening. All these subjects are coming in our minds, in our hearts, in our lives. So how all these subjects have to be taught? How are we going to transfer? Which means, how are we going to transfer all what you have heard in pedagogical methodology? Because these issues are related to economy, as we have heard in the first part today, are related to ecological issues, as we have heard yesterday, are related to history, to anthropology, to sociology. So how are we going to, what methodology are we going to use? So from that and from that questions came the field of human rights education, and peace education, that were the first fields that take these subjects as issues in order to teach. So you understand, we have to transfer from very specific fields, for example, economy, that was the example of the last presentation, to the field of education in order to make the people think about this. So we are not experts in anthropology, in economy, and environmental issues, in history, in law, in political issues. But we have to know how to put that in curricular science and how to explain and how to develop motivating, exciting classes, which was a real challenge. This was provided by very many methodologies coming from different disciplines as well. So because the subjects was so interdisciplinary and so related to so many disciplines, in the first time when we started working that was more or less the 60s and 70s, and not before, then we were interdisciplinary teams. So that teams putting the issues in education for justice, for culture of peace, for nonviolent means, come from different disciplines. So they are lawyers, and they are technicians, and they are economists, and they are anthropologists, and they are sociologists, and they are educators, that we're trying to think together how to put this in order to be learned and to be taught, what we call the teaching-learning process. So we connect both the teaching-learning process. And we have to try to find a methodology and an active way in order not to be so heavy with all this, and particularly because we are demanded to think, to teach, not only in universities, but how to teach this in primary school, in secondary school, and even in kindergarten, in the case of human rights, and the Convention of the Rights of the Children. So how are we going to put it? So it was a real challenge. First, to unify or to try to put all different issues in a same curricular design. Second, to find a methodology to make it active, dynamic, I would say even attractive to our students. So this was developed in the 70s and the 80s, and mainly we applied the methodology of a very well-known pedagogist, that it is Latin American, a Brazilian, that the name is Paulo Freire. So I recommend you to know this name if you don't know him, because that pedagogy that started in Brazil and then carried out all over the world. Paulo Freire is translated in all the languages today and studied in all the languages, talk about popular education and talk about the issues that the people want to know and have to know, besides the specific career they develop. They have, he said, and we said, you have to know about human rights. If you are an engineer, if you are an architect, if you are an educator, if you are a musician. You have to know about the climate change. You have to know about the universal and international debts and the debt trap, and the issues about economy. Besides, you are an engineer, an architect, etc., because there are issues that make a globalized knowledge and a needed knowledge in order to live, and some say to survive in the world, if we survive. So that comes to be the big field, the complex, I would say, interdisciplinary field of social science related to social justice and culture of peace. But what and who are going to be the people that are going to teach that. So the first groups that started at work were coming from the field, particularly from human rights. So those who are specialized in human rights education, and particularly also in gender education, rights of the children, and then came the economists, they were the first groups that started to study education after their own discipline, or to form part of the international groups starting on that. In the case particularly, so I want to highlight this, of human rights, that it illuminates and highlights the social justice education particularly. The groups came from Africa and from Latin America first, because as a result of the economic and social situation of these continents, those human rights studies and human rights education had come to be a priority. So it is true that in Africa, it was not very clear put in the curricular design, but issues related to human rights were developed. And in South America, particularly, because of the situation in between the 60s and middle of the 80s, what we called in Latin America the violence, direct violence, and dictatorship violence, because of that period of time in which Latin America was all under violence. Between the 60s and the 85, you have direct war, what we call in our science direct war, in Central America and Colombia. And you have another kind of war in the dictatorships in Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Brazil. So all the continent in the same timing was with direct war, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Colombia, Nicaragua, right? Central America. Colombia, of course, it is the north of South America in a permanent war. And the rest in dictatorships, which means another war, right? In between the army governments and the population. And so because of that situation, particularly situation during 25 years in general, yeah, and more in Colombia, till now, that it is supposed that the war is ending after the Havana agreements, and we think so, and we support it, all right? But then the whole continent was in that situation. That situation, what we call in education the context. You are going to find now in the methodology what we call in education the contextual conditions. The contextual conditions of the continent makes that the human rights education appear, mainly. We have studies of social justice and human rights education in Europe, in Canada, and United States, but more theoretical. As usual, they were very good in theoretics. But we are very, I would say, low in theoretical perhaps at that time, but with a very deep experience in practices as we are suffering that violation of human rights. So it appears as a need, the field, to try to understand, to try to study, and when the war ends, the war ends in the 90s in Central America, last El Salvador, 94, and the dictatorships ended in South America. That was, they ended more or less in the 84, but then we have Pinochet making this like a ghost, and he finally died, all right? But so then when the democracies were returned by the population, and the wars, civil wars, ended in Central America, then this education came to be part of the official curriculum. So it was the hidden curriculum. You know that term in pedagogy, hidden curriculum. It's something that you learn, but it is not written. All the disciplines have hidden curriculum. The technology disciplines also. That is what you learn, but it is not written. The hidden curriculum. But then it was open curriculum when after the wars and after the dictatorships, these social problems, these social situations come to be this analysis of the reality and of the world, as our two presentations before me have developed. Analysis of the reality of the world have to be put in curricular design. And I have to tell you that because of that appears also in the university levels, so appear at all levels. There were some governments, and this is new for Europe, so I want to tell you, new in the sense that you didn't do that so immediately, or you, perhaps because the lack of dictatorships, which was good, I mean, you don't have that immediate motivation to have that in your curriculum. For us, was a kind of ethical obligation to talk about that, and the democratic governments put it there. That is why, that is explanation why the human rights education, global justice, as is one of the main issues in human rights education and culture of peace education, developed so well and so good in the South. In Africa, it was the same, but slowly, and later on, and coming very slowly, but working well on that. So it is a kind of relationship in between traumatic situations, an appearance of some issues on the curricula. The big question is this, and listen very well. Aren't the world today, all the world, in a traumatic situation? I mean, so according to what we have heard from yesterday and today in the morning, these fantastic presentations, there is some problems. And that problems, because of the globalized world we are living today, that was not the case after the Second World War, and it was not the case in the 60s, and it was not the case in the 70s when I started being part of these groups. So these main issues that we have been discussing, and you asking clever questions and very good answers from the presentations, so they are all globalized. And in a way, we are in difficult situations. So that means that it is the moment that the curricular designs of almost all the world have to have these issues. It is a need that all of us, even in Sweden and Norway, that are considered the best countries how the people lived. I say what the book said or the article said. Even in countries, Canada is another top country from the happiness of the people, it is said, and from the well-being. And Denmark and Netherlands, I'm speaking about the northerns that are considered like that, or the south, all have globalized issues that in a way, because of the links between one another region, because of the links between the peoples and the countries, they are really problems of all, or issues that have to be taught for all. So in a way, this pedagogy now is entering and being included everywhere. And that is why, then, before starting my presentation, this is to explain you how the field starts, that it is not something created by a hot brain, but a need of the realities, and that now it is a big issue in the world, education world. And that is why the UNESCO, you know the UNESCO, it is the agency from the United Nations that work on science and education. And the Council of Europe, for Europe, I am part of that two bodies. And because I am Argentinian Italian, so as an Italian, I work in Europe. And then these big bodies, that they are the top bodies in education that goes to all the ministries of education of the world, they decided that we have to deal with. So global justice, which was the very name of this conference, culture of peace, and citizenship, global citizenship education are the issues that are put on the top of the problematics, of the studies, of the research, and starting to try to put on seminars in the universities of all disciplines in order to talk, to know, like the themes that you have been heard yesterday and today, that even from what field you are coming, it is needed to know and to understand in order to overcome and to make better. And our field, the education field, is how we can teach it or transfer. So I shall try to explain you how we can do, and please, of course, it's a disciplining process, so we are making changes all the time. We are international teams, so when we discuss what you are going to see, it is a discussion coming from educators from many countries that they decided to put together, or we were called to put together to do this. And the result of this thinking is what we are sharing with happiness with you. All right? So we are going to go to the first PowerPoint, that it is the questions that we make. So the first thing that we ask in education is questions about the world that we live. Put my glasses here in case I need. Okay? And so when, for example, and this is in order to make you think as well. And I'm using a resource that we use very many times in human rights and culture of peace education, that is a comic, okay? In this case, if in global justice we have to think, and it is a global theme, we have to think or discuss on circulation, mobility, or environment care, what the society, what the governments, what the people said. Well, the solution for that circulation is obvious, a car. When we are thinking about what we learned, where are the learning contents? It is supposed that the society, the government, or the Ministry of Education, it depends, you can think who is that person with red, in red. Can be a father, can be the headmaster of a school that sometimes are awful, or a rector, or the Ministry of Education, or the president, or my neighbor. In any way, where are the learning contents? It is only there? Is the society would point it out? And is this communication, is this the only resource for communication? Is the society today teaching this? Yes? No? What about culture? What is the general meaning of culture? What is culture for this group or this society? This is very strong, but you know, very many times they answer these kind of things. Where are the values? Where are the values and what are the values? Which is very important, as you can imagine, in global justice and human rights. And so where put the good values this society? When we talk about solidarity, solidarity to whom? What the society says to us, teach us, or if it is not an explicit, it is implicit through the individualism. And what are the beliefs? what are the beliefs. Very strong message. And look that the money is a green paper that all of us know. So it is not any kind of money of talking about monetary situations, one kind, till now. So the question in education that we have to start to think is, are all these relevant learnings? Are all these relevant learnings? So we have, this is what society shows, or part of it show. So are these relevant learnings, if that is contextual conditions? And so the question, the big question that it is a challenge for our work. Is this what we want to construct in culture of peace and global justice education, or this is what we have to deconstruct? So you having read here the two words that really I want you to remember. In education and making a methodology. So it is not possible to construct today if you don't deconstruct some things. Because what it is obvious is that this is not okay. Besides, it is part of our society. So if this is part of our society and our reality, and I am showing you very simple things, and not big things, as we have heard from the other presentations. So if this is the reality, so the process, our methodology, is two phases. So it is not true, listen please, it is not true when President Santos from Colombia, the new Nobel Peace Prize, as you may know, and we are very happy of that, said, now we have peace, he said. Now we have peace. Now we have peace because we have signed an agreement, all right? It is true that they are going to have peace, but they are going to have a kind of peace. So the armed conflict is ended. But listen, please. It is not enough that an armed conflict ends to have peace. It is necessary to construct the peace. So, to end a war is a necessary condition, but not sufficient, we say in philosophy. It is necessary to end the army conflict, but doesn't mean that we have peace. Then we have to create human rights system, we have to create health system, we have to create schools, we have to give employees to all the people, we have to have the ex-soldiers in the schools, in the universities, and then we are constructing peace. So we have to deconstruct the army forces, to give the weapons, etc., what they are doing, by the way, now, in this very moment. But that is not peace. What it is wrong in the speech of the president, because it is a political president, that is peace. Because even the people in Colombia said, no, but listen, I need medicines for my child. I am not in peace. Okay? So there is another conditions that create that. So what conditions we have to think? That we have to think to put in that are the issues on global justice education and human rights education. So you have to think how to deconstruct what you have in your contextual conditions, your countries, your city, your regions, and what are you hoping to construct. And to separate clearly what you don't want, okay, in the curriculum designs, and what do you want, what do you need to study in that specific area. Is it clear? So that movement is one of the first issues that I want to transfer you. The notion in human rights of deconstruction and construction. that work more or less together, right? Number 2, please. Hello? Number 2, please. Thank you. So, how we put this then in a methodological way, okay? So, I shall try to be as light as possible. Help me, please. So, you see here, so all these questions, how we put inside. And that is pedagogies and practices for COP that you see here, always is culture of peace. In UNESCO, in Council of Europe, in all the world, even in another language, we use that, COP and global justice education, all right? And the result of what you are seeing now is the studies that it was developed by the University of Peace of the United Nations. You know, the United Nations have the University of Peace in Costa Rica. Costa Rica was chosen because it is the only country that have no army. Do you know that? Yes? There is only one country in the world that have no army, that it is Costa Rica. And there is only one country that allowed the torture by law. Just the opposite. There is only one country in the world that allows the torture by law. Do you know which country is that? Israel. Is there any Israeli here? No? No one from Israel. Israel is the only country that allows torture by law. So I make as an opposite, because they see, so it is legal. Of course, we have torture everywhere, but it is not legal. No? Okay, so this is why the teams of that university, it's a university for peace, for all the masters and doctorals that you can go, even engineering, in environmental peace, all right? We studied this. And so what we develop? So here you are going to see after first questioning, the questions on the society. So I use a comic in order to reflect, is our society like that? Is not? If it is like that, I want to move, I want to change, or I don't want to change. That is the first one. The second one is how we put that in methodology. That is how we teach all these things. That it is the main issue of this. And so you see 3 branches, that it is the most important thing. So because you are coming from technology, and just to show you, and think that even if your discipline you have the same, when you develop a program, think that I am in charge of programs. Tanganyika can ask the UNESCO to make a program on this, or Bolivia, or Canada, or China, that they're introducing human rights, by the way, and social justice in the programs. And so they ask the UNESCO to come and to work with them in developing them. So when we go there, for example, so first of all, in the middle, the contextual conditions. That means where, when, with who, what. Mainly, where, when. So no program is the same in no country, even if it is Peru and Bolivia that are like this, or it is Germany and Netherlands that they are in Europe. Or it is Norway and Sweden that they are like this. No. No country is exactly the same as the other. So we have to study first the contextual conditions of that. For example, here in Ilmenau, even in Germany, in the region, Thuringia. So probably the contextual conditions you are going to have common things with other German states, and common things with other European countries, and common things with the Western world, and common things with the world. So it is like a stone in the water. Is it clear? Here you are. I have to know very well this Ilmenau, and then all the relationships that you establish in order to know exactly the contextual conditions to develop that program. And that is the way to do it. So that is the first study that we do, the contextual conditions. Then we study the contents. The contents are what you study. The contextual condition is where and when. The content is the what. What do you need? What do you want to know about a specific area in human rights? So we develop the contents. Generally, the students think that we develop directly the contents. Generally, you think, well, you know, a curriculum design is a list of things. No, the list of things is the contents, but that contents have to be related to the contextual conditions. You can't transfer a program from Sweden to Uruguay. They do, by the way. The people do that and make the exercise. So you can transfer the same program of a university like Ilmenau from another place here. So you have to study exactly this. And then, last but not least, the methodology and strategies. That is the how. So where, when, what, and how. And with all that package, interrelations between content, form, and contextual condition. Methodology is the form, the methodology that you are going to use. And then with that package, you develop a human rights program or a human rights project, because we're talking here about activities, projects, programs, etc., right? And so for studying that, now we are in human rights, social justice. You have to connect what you are going to study. You are in the now and the here. Look, the individual, the here, and the now. We are here, all right? And so you have to connect that you are studying in the here and the now and the individual, that it is Ilmenau, May 14th, 2017, and you here seated, that it is that now, here, and individual. Is it clear? You have to connect what you study with what we call the two main lines. You have to connect with the line of the time and the line of the space. The line of the time means that when you study some issue, you have to go to the roots, what happened in the past with that issue. What happened today and what can happen in the future, what we call the vision. So here in Ilmenau, May 14th, 2007, in this class, okay, facing an issue of global justice, you have to think of how it was done, that issue, the roots of the issue, the past, and to think how you can make better the future. So that is the timeline. And also you have to think what relations you have, they have this theme to the other spaces. So if this is happening in Ilmenau, in Thuringia, what relation it has with the rest of Germany, the other states, the other countries, Europe, Western world, or the world. So it's coming like this. So only, listen this because it is a rule. In social science there are not many rules, this is one. In the process of going on the line time to the past and the future, and moving in the space-time from the near to the far, you understand better the problems and the issues. You understand less if you keep in the now and the here and the individual. You understand better the globalized issues if you move in the space, connecting that with the spaces, Thuringia, state of Thuringia, Germany, Western, etc., etc. And if you move to the past, going to the causes, and to the future, going to what can happen, how I can change. So this is the matrix in order to move in the issues related to human rights. In Africa or in Latin America or anywhere caused, for example, a violation of human rights. Or the migration issue, that it is a big theme today in Europe. What are we going to do with these people? Okay? So that migrants, you have not to study them where they are. They are now stopped in Italy, in the south of Italy. They are not stopped in Greece because they can enter from there, okay? The rest of Europe. Now, to understand the issue, you have to know what happened to them, what makes them come in here. So that is a need for the students. Another thing is you agree or not to come, that they come here. I am not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact, as when you study your technology. So this is the fact. The migrants are here. Okay, why they come? What can we do with the future? How they are there, how they are related. So to move all over this matrix as a methodology. So which is not simple. And also we have to think on the reality and the theory, right? So we have to move on the ground, looking at the things that are happening, that it is a practice, and studying theoretically about it, that it is the theory. So we have to go from the observation, like these presenters do, from the observation that it is a practice, to go to study more about that, and then you return to observe, and then you go to study more, and then you make that. And that it is called praxis. So the methodology that we use for global study justice is not only to work on the field. And it is not only to study in the library, right? So we have, because we are in social sciences, as your sciences, we have to put them together. And in social sciences, to put together is to go to the field, to observe, to ask questions to the people, and then to try to answer them and to understand, and then return again exactly. So you see what we call codification and decodification of the reality. Theory, practice, practice, theory, theory, practice all the time. That movement, that methodology that we do with this, when going to the future or trying to imagine the future with realities, not only with utopias. And when we go to the past and we move in the space trying to understand that, we are going in the field and we are going studying and then going to the field again. So both of them are combined. You understand? And that is the way in order to approach the issues that we are worried about. And so these principles have all these main issues to work. And I ask you, when I ended this second PowerPoint, if you do this in your university here. Because from our point of view of educators, these 4 principles have to work in all the disciplines, not only in global justice and culture of peace. I suppose you know what is holism, is to interconnect all the issues. Holism is when you interconnect all the themes. Critical thinking, it's to ask and to criticize the reality and to think what is happening, and even to challenge the professors with your questions and your ideas and your thoughts. So the development of critical thinking, not to repeat what the professor or the books or the theories tell you, or your father, or your rector, but to think about that. Well, yeah, I agree with him, and then in that agreement it's different than to exactly repeat or reflect. So you think that you agree, and then you said I agree, and then that's his critical thinking as well. So critical thinking is not saying no to the others, it's saying yes, I agree because I think the same things, etc. Also, we have to make values formation, and I'm sure you do in your university. I mean, there are things that form my ethics, and that ethics is value formation in the university. And last but not least, the dialogue with the professors and the teachers. Ask them, challenge them, ask more bibliography, more references, discuss the theories, say that you don't agree. So all that principles move that. So it is not repetition. It is not boring with that person. It is trying to move my spirit and my soul and my brains with that. So here you see the holings mean all that. Local and global, related to the now, the here, and the places, other places. So in the holism, all issues have to be related, all level of education, and all sectors of society. We have to work on human rights and global justice. From the dialogue, what dialogue means? Open to new ideas, it is a respectful learning, it is participatory, democratic teaching and learning. It is not repetition, it is not one person, it is one level and the others here, but they are moving like this. I'm going to explain you in an exercise. Critical thinking, here you have it, is in red because it is very important. The critical thinking moves mind, heart, and spirit. So you think, you reflect, you have empathy to the others, you are interested in the issues of global justice. It means commitment, like the people of Ilmenau, that every 2 years they do these kind of encounters. It means action and transformation at personal level and social level. And here you have the values formation. Look if you recognize that you have that, please. You have values formation in your family, what we call early family socialization. All of us learn from the family. The first school is the family, bad or good, but it is. And you know that it is proved and tested that all what a child, a girl and a boy, learn till 4 years ago, 4 years, 4 years, it's the base of all the codes and the ethics he or she is going to have. That it is absolutely tested by the psychologists, etc. So the first 3 years, the first 4 years are basic in the formation of values and the formation of the mind and the heart of the people. That is why it's so terrible that children in bad conditions, from the affection point of view and from the food point of view, till the 4 years. So it is very difficult to make them grow in all the levels. It is not a direct condition, but it is a very, very important condition, that early socialization. The cultural roots, all of us have cultural roots. And then this values formation, that it is done from that first, early family socialization and cultural roots, we add the universal values consensus according, that it is Declaration of Human Rights, the international parameters and legal framework, so all the other values that our nation, our state, establish as values also. For example, democracy, in the case of Sherman, or equality, equality of men and women, etc. They are coming from international and national parameters. Of course, we can learn here in the early family socialization, but then they are reinforced by the legal laws, the legal system of the country, or have to be reinforced by the legal system and the international system, the international law in human rights. So, what do we want to do? We want to transform in human rights education by action. So remember that it is not only theory, but actions, activities, projects. That is why we want to make projects with schools. Because really the students of the high school, for example, and the university, they learn when they make projects. They learn when they go to the field, they go to the communities, to the people. Critical empowerment, so to know that you can critique, that you can analyze, and then reflect, because the critique is observe, first step now in pedagogy, observation, analysis, reflect, decision and action. I repeat, observe what you are seeing in the world or in this community that you want to work, analysis of what you are seeing, reflect on what you are seeing, planning, and then action, you plan the activities. And that is critical empowerment. Not only critique what you see, but make all the things in order to go ahead with that critique. Needs also learning specific skills, attitudes and values formation in all the actors. So it is a need that teachers, parents, families, students, government, all social actors learn about human rights. Not only the teacher of human rights and the students. Meeting genuine needs and realities. So the themes, the content have to be needs and the reality, not something that the teacher decided it is good. You have to decide what is good and what we are going to discuss and make in this project. So we recommend the holistic perspective, the interdisciplinary perspective. We recommend to work in projects and campaigns and on-field activities, and it is learner-centered. So the learner is the most important. So I'm going to make an exercise to make you understand better the modification that is this methodology come. I need water. No, yes, better this. And I need a volunteer. Volunteer? Who is going to be a volunteer? Sankal? Or a victim? Come. A volunteer? In order to show which is a traditional learning and what is the proposal? No one?
One.
Okay, thank you very much. You are courage. No, this is like this. Can you see this here? Sure. Do you see him? Do you see him? What is your name?
Leroy.
Okay, Leroy. Okay, so I'm going to show you the traditional learning. And so what we proposed. This is a very traditional way that I am all the time speaking, nothing more, but it is not the same when we have small groups. Okay, so I am the professor. I'm traditional school. I am the professor, I am the teacher. I am the person that knows. I am the father that knows and decides all the destiny. Okay. And this is the knowledge. This is the knowledge. This is mathematics 1 in engineering. Or 2, or thermodynamics, that we are talking about thermodynamics this morning. Okay? And this is my student. My student knows nothing. You know nothing, all right? So, it's not true, sure. Okay, and so the teacher, the professor, the person that knows, this is. So, how are you? Oh my God. It's like last evening, eh? Okay, with the rain. So, I put this, that it is mine, it is not yours, it is my knowledge, and I put the timing and the quantity that I think he needs, okay? So the timing, now water, no, now not water, and a lot. Or like this. So I decided, so the power is that I have the water, I have the glass. And not only that, but I decide when and the quantity. So today we are going to, you are very sleepy, so today we are going to make only one issue. Or today it's a good day, it's sunny, so I'm going to develop all the unit number 1, 2, and 3, okay? And the students, so that is the situation. And of course, it is a situation of power. So in the traditional school, the power, who has the power, who has the knowledge, has the power, no?
Yep.
Yeah, and it is not in the tradition as well, I'm sorry to tell you, but anyway. So who has the knowledge has the power, and who works with that knowledge in the timing and space that he or she decided also have more power. And the relation of power is a relation of superiority and inferiority. So the professors and the teachers are superior, and so in the old times, you know that we have, when I was a child, and suppose some of you as well, the teachers and professors are always under a stair like this. So we are, and it is not only for looking at the students, because the students never move. They didn't dare. But it is because you have to be higher. So the idea is that we share the water. So you can bring to me, you can be doing with me as well. Okay, so because probably
I only give a
little, please, more, I want to know more.
You're not ready.
I know nothing about technology, you know, it's a bit.
Ready, so
I am not ready. He said that I am not, well, stop, because now. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, but because you have a little. Okay, thank you, yeah, thank you. Perhaps I call you again. But it is not what is going to be worse. Okay, so the idea is in the methodology of human rights that all of us know something. That is very important, and I'm going to tell you a story now. That is another resource that we use in human rights. Oh my God. Hello? Let's see. Now, and all of us know something. The issue is that we know different things. And the society gives value to different things. So, if I am a professor of mathematics or of physics, that have value. But if I am a professor of football, well, I don't know, but in this scenario have no value. It has value in another scenario. So all the people, the idea is that all the people knows nothing, and all the people, said the methodology, can be a teacher of something. I mean, all the people have a glass of water then. The issue is what value have this glass of water in this timing, in this space. In Ilmenau Technology University, it's good to know a lot of, I suppose, physics and mathematics. And it is not really very important to know how to play the guitar, right? But if you are in a concert or in a bar, okay, then to come with your guitar is more important to know what is mathematics. So it depends, but doesn't mean that you know nothing and I know a lot. So the methodology breaks the idea of expertise as a power, because in that way, that is why is this a democratic proposal, a participatory democracy proposal. I'm putting it easier than that here, all right, and in UNESCO terms, because all are equal if we all know that it's not a question of power, it is a question of respect. And then that comes very good to the issues that we have to discuss. Because very many times in human rights, and happened to me, the students ask for a theme that I don't know. I remember a student that I have from Nepal in Spain. I teach in Spain, and it was international course, and he was from Nepal. And he wants to be an expert on human rights in Nepal. I know about Nepal, where it is, that it is in Asia. I know that they have a king and nothing more. So imagine that he demands from the human rights teacher, because I am a human rights teacher, to teach him about human rights in Nepal. So he has the knowledge of the contextual conditions. And we have the chance to research together. And so finally, after 2 years that he made his master, I know a lot about Nepal, but studying with him. So he learned the methodology to research from me, and I learned Nepal from him. So it is a kind of exchange. The ideal in global justice and human rights education that this exchange have to flow permanently. Because even if you don't know certain things, you need to know perhaps the other things that have the other. All right? So that idea. Other ideas, so deconstruct and construct. The other idea, changing the role of the professor as superior, recognizing the knowledge of all the people. Many times they know something that you want to know or you don't know. You don't want or you don't care, but they know, okay? So that condition of learner and teacher at the same time. Not one is the learner, one is the teacher. So they are changing that. And third, the third condition that it is very important, it is the construction, listen this, and then we are going to see the last group of PowerPoint about the contents, the recognition that we have to construct the knowledge together. So it is better if you research together, if you discuss, if you read together with the students. So the knowledge, as we say, as a social construction, that it is very Paulo Freire. Knowledge as a social construction, knowledge as a collective construction. So it is not only you, that you were alone during a year in a library. Sorry to tell you, but you are not alone, because you are with the authors of the books. So it is not you. It is the author of the book that you are reading and you. And articles, and the people that have written the articles that you find, and you are so happy because you find that article that no one knows I'm going to put in my thesis. That is the person that it is working with you, because it's giving the article, it's giving the ideas. So even in the library, you are not alone. It is not true, I mean that. And you are not alone also because you are learning, because you have learned people before, because you have talked with a colleague before that gives you some ideas, and because you have another teachers and you have a parents. So there you have a background of collective history that makes you making your thesis. Even you are 2 years closed. And that is what Mandela said, you know, that Mandela, talking about Mandela, 27 years in the jail, and you know that he decided to be a lawyer. He decided 2 things while, well, many things, but 2 things related to education while he was in jail. One, to learn African, to learn African. And so the colleagues in the prison, the political prisoners said, are you going to learn the language of the enemy? He said, yes. Because we are not going to be enemies all our lives, and because I have to understand them in order to try to go ahead. So I have to understand, and the issue is to learn the language. So he was the first African revolution that speaks African, a language that was the official language, even after the apartheid, till now. And the second decision that he takes is to be a lawyer. And he said, I was alone in the jail, but I was not alone because I was with the company of the books that told me what I have to learn. So I was not alone. I learned with a lot. Because the journalist asked him, is it easy to learn alone? Is it not so sad to be in a jail? And he said, no, I was not alone. So he said, well, probably he read Paulo Freire, he read the Theology of Liberation or whatever, and the New Pedagogy, because none of that. So that is another principle that you have to introduce as a methodology. all are equal, all knows. We are not alone. We are never alone, by the way, even if we think we are. When learning and when living, by the way. That's very important. So last, what contents we find in the list of human rights in this social justice learning? Let's put the number 3, is it? I think. Yeah. Let's see if it is number 3. That it is the list of knowledge. Oh, look, yes. And this is the list of possible issues that you can put in the program, also in your university. And the blue ones are those that students recommend me in the last course that I had a month ago. That was in Colombia, because I live in Colombia now. Because of the peace process, I'm part of the team that are working on education. And so we made this, and the students in blue, they add this, talking about global justice. Do you want to read? No? Yes, why not? Wait till I take this. I give to you. You don't want? My God. Sorry. Who wants to read? No one wants to read? She wants to read. Okay, she's going to do it. Can you read the themes, please?
Division and distribution of political and economic power.
No, all of them.
All of them?
Yeah,
okay.
all of the issues that the students want, but then the blue ones are the new ones.
Okay.
Okay.
Democracy, authoritarian governments, universal human rights, gender and children rights, division and distribution of political and economic power, concept of peace, conflict and violence, conflict analysis, resolution and transformation, cultural diversity, multiculturality, interculturality, interfaith perspectives, intercultural dialogue, civil society participation, social movements, justice system and social justice, migration, population movements, sustainable development, environment care, natural resources protection, and another one.
Yeah. You understand what is this? This would be possible contents that you can put in your programs. Or you can ask a seminar on these issues and then relate it to your disciplines. Generally, we have, for example, democracy, authoritarian governments, and then in the medical schools, they want to know how this is related to their work. And it is, because in a dictatorship or in war, all the disciplines, all the professions changed, you know. And they have to serve to that. So how you can put it, and the blue ones, as I told you, are the new ones that they think, and I think very good, well put, that they want to have in the universities, in the different professions. We want to discuss this. For example, division and distribution of political and economic power, of course. It was not in the old list, but now we have. So this is a proposal of contents in a program on global justice. You understand what is this? So the first PowerPoint, we saw the comic in order to reflect on the reality. And if what you saw is in your reality. The second PowerPoint was related to the methodology, how we can teach. And this third one is related to what can I learn or I want to learn, or you make another list. The next one related to this is what skills you have to develop in global justice and human rights education. Do you want to read, or you say no? Say yes, please. Okay. Thank you. Skills.
Skills to be developed good hearing and accurate observation, interest and participation, critical thinking and reflection, open-minded discussion, imagination, innovation, and future thinking, empathy, collaborative problem solving, conflict management, resolution and transformation, diverse way of communication, political, social and media literacy, and
other skills. Yeah. So, thank you. The first was related to what contains. This is related what skills it is supposed I have to learn in order to develop all these things. And so you see here things that really are innovative, because generally we find all of them, some of them in the professions, but for example, we don't hear that we have to know empathy, which means to understand the other, to put in the shoes of the other. We don't hear that we have to have imagination or future thinking. You know what is future thinking? Future thinking is this exercise of the vision, we say in peace education, to think with the elements of the past and the reality of the present, what future can I develop? So you have to use the elements of the past and the elements of the present in order to construct the future. The future is not like a balloon that comes beautiful, a white picture that we always draw the piece. No, no. The future is going to be made by your past and your present, and that's the vision of the future. So you have to use that timeline, and that is future thinking. Okay, I'm an engineer, this is a reality, this is a problematic, what can I do? What I want to do with what I know, what I don't know, what I have to study, etc., to do that. And so you project that it is future thinking. It's very important in human rights. Collaborative problem solving, here you have the collective, the socialized learning that you do with the others. So that skills, it is supposed that you have to be developed, or you develop during these knowledges. And then last but not least, what values? What values we highlight that you have to construct in human rights? Of course, we don't have all of them, but some of them. Do you want to read, please? Thank you.
Attitudes and values to be built, respect the self and the others, dialogue and participation, cooperation and solidarity, respect and preservation of different cultures and cultural groups, multiculturalism and multi-faith perspectives, sense of social responsibility, commitment to justice and equality, ecological concerns, constructing vision for a better future, and other values.
Yeah, other, what you want to add. So here you have a list. Of course, if we have all of them in human rights, that's very good. But at least to be clear, some subjects that you can face, and you add another ones, related, remember, to the place and the timing. Some skills that we highlight in order to be built, and values that we highlight. And of course, can be others, many others to that we consider basic. Okay, last, what I'm going to tell you, and to end, I suppose you are quite tired. I know that it is not light, but you know, the pedagogy on human rights, it's very dense, and I have tried to do my best in order to make a kind of presentation to people that are not experts in education, so trying to do the lighter as possible. So I think that I'm going to end with a story. The storytelling is another methodology that we use a lot. We use comics, we use newspapers, we use small groups and dialogue, as we are going to do, because I'm going to make 2 workshops on these themes, but with 20 people, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So we are going to work on practices, a little bit more dynamic. And also we use stories. We use stories in order to start a subject on human rights, or in order to end, like a kind of summary of all. So in this case, as a methodology, I choose a story in order to end, to make a kind of summary of the presentation. Okay, and the story that you can use in the methodology, it can be a story of another person, of something that have told you something, or in your life. In this case, I'm going to use the story of my life because it started my interest in human rights. And so perhaps it makes you think also. There is some point that something happens that started, and then me, that I am specialized in history of Latin America, contemporary Latin America, that was my discipline, etc., happens to appear another field, the education, and then the human rights and social justice. And the story is this. So, we are in a school. Suppose I am a teacher now, the traditional, with a bottle of water. I'm a teacher, I'm in a school. I am, let's say that you are my students. I am a young teacher of 24 years ago, 24, 23 years old. And you are my students, and you are the first grade of the Lyceum. So you are 13 years old, at the first grade of the high school in Argentina. And we are in a very interesting school that it was in my city, in Argentina. My city is Rosario city, the second of the country. And there, in that school, it was very progressive. And they have a very, very big library that it was the most important of the city with a lot of books. And we're very proud to be part of that school, that it is a progressive school. But it was the first month of the dictatorship. The second month, exactly, of the dictatorship. It was in April. The dictatorship started in March. The second month of the dictatorship. The young teacher, that was me, was teaching Egypt, the history of Egypt, and Greeks and the Romans, because it was the first history that we learned, and the first civilizations. So Egypt, the Phoenicians, the Greeks, and the Romans, right? And so I was teaching that in that moment. The course was listening to me. We have this window like this, exactly, the situation. And then the headmaster entered desperately to my classroom. It was the first grade, so they are the smaller of the high school, the 13 years old, and said, Alicia, the army is entering the school. The army is entering the school. Put all the students on the floor. I said, what? Because it was forbidden. Huh? I said, what? Yes, the army is entering. And I heard the boots, and they are gunning like this, down in the school to the roof, and entering the school running, trying to find someone. So I make an order to my students, go to the floor, boom, all on the floor. They start crying, they start, you know. And what happened? The army is in the school, keep on the floor. I was very direct. And then while they kept in the floor, that was more or less 8-10 minutes, so a long time, I saw, this is the situation, listen, I saw in the windows like this, smoke, white smoke. I say, what's that? And then I go near the windows, and I saw that the army was firing the books of the library. So they are coming like, you know, like a comic, like this, with the books, and they're putting on the fire. They are making fires there. So, because this is my room, my classroom, and that was the roof of the library. And so they are in the roof of the library putting all the books and firing the books. Imagine. And so I thought, they have to see this. They have to see my students. We don't know what is going to happen. So I say, stand up. Stand up 2 times because they are like this. Go to the window. Oh, teacher, go to the window. So I was very, very dictator. So they go to the window. They say, they are firing the books. They are firing the books. And one of them, the worst of the class, that it's never read books, but he played in the library with that things, cards, etc. I said, they are firing the games, he said. I remember very well. Yeah, because that was his interest. Yes, I say, the boxes of the games and the books, they are firing. Look at this, and remember, the Romans had come, I said. The Romans had come. Look and remember. 3 or 4 minutes, they look like this, all of them looking at that, crying. Then came the headmaster and said, Alicia, take out the children, take out. They are the first one, the smaller, take out, and we see what happened. So I ordered them to went out of school, and they went home with me till the door, and that's it. 25 years after that, 25 years, listen, the same teacher, quite older, by the way, quite older, specialized in human rights at that time now, so 40-something, almost 50. I was in the supermarket and trying to choose some tins, etc. I don't see the prices, and then I say, what is the price of this bean tin in the supermarket? And then a young man with a cap that was putting all the tins, he said, 34 pesos, professor. He answered me. I said, what? 34 pesos, professor. He said, that man. And then I go to him and I say, well, you have been probably one of my students. I never recognized them, of course. You have been one of my students. I was trying to be charming, not knowing from where is him. All right. Oh, well, how are you? From where you are? Blah, blah. And then he looked at me, very serious. I was surprised that he was very serious because generally they smile, no? To the old teacher. He looked at me very serious and came near me. So he was like this, and he was coming near me like this. And he said, the fire, teacher, the fire. He said that words 2 times. I am now touched by that story. So he said, the fire, teacher, looking at my eyes, the fire. And I immediately, after 25 years, what he is telling me. He's telling that he was part of that group. I immediately made that. He's saying this, he made the same with my voice, because he told me he recognized my voice. And so he said, the fire, teacher, the fire. And then I look at him, and then he said this, listen. And you know, now I am the representative of this supermarket in the trade union. And nothing more. And you know, now I am the representative of this supermarket in the trade union. And that's it. That was the message. And then I understood, and listen very carefully, that the human rights education is everywhere, even in a young teacher that it is teaching Egypt and the Greeks. And even a student of 13 years old had understood what the army, what the violation, what the fire of books means. So human rights education have to be everywhere. And the fires have to be in your inside, and have to be good fires. So good luck with human rights education. Thank you. Klaus.
So, Professor Cabezudo,
Yeah.
thanks a lot for this beautiful lecture. You've made some really important points, that education is not just that transferred from professor to a student, but it is everywhere, and everyone can participate in educating for global justice. And you've also made some important points by the way you conducted your lecture, like stepping down from the stage and telling everyone that I am at your level and you can teach me things.
I am waiting. Huh?
So thanks a lot for all the insights and sharing this beautiful story from your life. We will now move on to some questions. I'm sure people would like to have some more details on certain aspects. So the procedure is the same. We have two people holding the mics, and if you have questions, do raise your hands. Oh, so we have one there.
He's obliged because of the situation of the water on the head. No, it's not an obligation. Huh?
Yeah. Thank you. My question is related to one of your slides about the framework that you had presented, which talked about critical thinking and your subsequent explanation of that. I usually have trouble with the same critical thinking or believing that I'm a critical thinker or an independent thinker when, for example, I write a paper and I'll have comments that, oh, this is a good paper, well thought out paper. And then within that paper, my analysis was based on somebody's framework. Or if I write my own analysis, which I think maybe they are independent, and then the professor would ask me, from which lens did you analyze this work? Yeah, and you had said that empowering a student with methodology is enough to make them a critical thinker because they have the background knowledge, but from the requirements of professors for me to cite work, like where are you basing these arguments, that to me defeats the purpose of critical thinking because somebody did the work and the professor requires me to prove my thinking via somebody's work. So that defeats the purpose. I would like to comment.
I'm going to answer immediately. So do you hear me? Or I use that? I'm going to answer him first. So critical thinking means also to support your ideas and your theories. So when the teacher, the professor said, tell me from where you are taking this, you have to answer. I mean, I have read this, and these authors, and I agree with this, I disagree with this, and I think this. So critical thinking doesn't mean that your thinking is floating like a cloud. It means, and I think it was clear, that you construct your thinking, you choose the theories that you think are the best, and then you explain that to the professor. You can repeat the theory that you think it is the best, and then say why for you is the best. Because you have read 8, and then you choose this. And then you have to know why you chose that. So critical thinking doesn't mean that you have to think, that you have to say all what you think or challenging the professor all the time. All that challenges and all what you think, you have to have a supported basis. So if the professor asks you from where are you thinking that, you have to tell him, well, I read 10 books, And then I found that this is the best. Well, and then the professor, if it is a good professor, I am sure you have, it says, well, why it is the best for you? It is not for me. Many times happened to me. But why it is the best for you, explain me. And then you explain, okay. I respect your idea. Huh? Maybe. So, I mean, don't think that critical thinking is saying what you think. It's saying what you think also with the support of a good reading, good references, good theories, and good all what you know and you are learning. So remember even the steps. You observe and then you decide, observe or you read, or you study. That observation can be different. Then you analyze, then you reflect what you have written, and then you decide and then you expand with your words. Even you can say a theory that you support and then explain with your words why you support that theory. And that it is very good for the professor, generally for all professors, I'm sure. So don't worry about it. Is it clear, my answer? Yeah? For all? Because
okay.
Others perhaps are thinking another. Here we have another one. Or not?
Yeah, that one.
Hello, Professor.
Hello.
I'm an Argentinian also. Well, I was thinking about how do you think that bad learning condition affects global justice education, and how do you think we can deal with that issue?
Can you repeat the question, please, again?
Yes. I would like to know, how do you think that bad learning conditions affect the way you, the teachers, can teach us about global justice, and how can we deal with that problem?
Now, yes, I didn't understand very well bad learning. What do you mean by bad learning? What do you mean by bad learning? Bad contextual conditions?
Yes, contextual conditions. Maybe the building is not good, or people has not enough food when they have to go to school, you know, like...
Yeah.
But physical conditions, or ambient, or yes, context conditions.
Yeah. Well, the worst conditions for a bad learning are the conditions related to the family and the teachers, and not the buildings. It is proved that in many countries in Africa, for example, they have not buildings. They have good teachers. Generally, the Africans are very good teachers. They are well prepared. And they teach under a tree. So, the students are seated on the ground. The teacher is seated in the only chair or in the ground, generally, with the students. And they have a small blackboard like this, only one. Not one for each, for all. And so he uses that blackboard or a paper with a pen, and he is explaining. So the material conditions are terrible, but the teacher is good prepared. The students want to learn. The issues that he selected are relevant. He teaches mathematics. 1 leaf plus 1 leaf is 2 leaves, so he used the leaves of the tree in order to count. He used the words of the tribe in order to teach how to write. And so that goes over the material situation. So the material situation, I would say, of course it helps. Of course it helps now that the tech is so important. But the most important condition is the preparation of the coordinator of the group, named coordinator, instructor, teacher, whatever, the person that is going to relate with the students, and mainly, absolutely mainly, the interest of the students to be there. If you are interested, you learn, even under the rain. Like yesterday in the opening ceremony, that all of us were listening to the rector because it was a beautiful speech, by the way. So we want to be there, and we were there. All right? So that is the most important. Of course, if that student that was there have not food, is ill, he was injured by the parents, the father have no work during the last 3 years, the mother is nowhere, so the social conditions of the students influenced, and that was a very bad condition. So the conditions, the material conditions from the place where the students are coming, and from their own social economic conditions are important. But if they are interested and if the instructor operates in a good relationship, they learn. They learn. And they learn good. And they learn with happiness, which is very important. I always say this. So listen, because you are a university student and say, oh, the university students. I always, I mean, at this level now, more, no? At master or doctorate. So I say, please close your eyes and remember the teachers in primary school, high school, or university that you love more, that you respect more. And generally, other teachers, the professors, even at university level, that hear to you, that listen to you, that invites you to have a coffee when you say things that you are a little bit worried about something private. So that person that showed you affection, interest, not knowledge on technology only, all that issues, then it is near you. So the issue of the relationship in between the process of education, in between what we call the actors of education, that what it is so-called professor and so-called student, that we know now that all of us are professors and students. So that relationship helps a lot in making these bad conditions lower. So that is an important issue. Even in the adults, imagine the children, that they are weaker on that. Even in the adults, you remember that people that gives you more than what it is called mathematics 3 or electronics 4 or whatever. That's it. So remember that. And the tree in Africa. Yeah. Another question? No, not applause, it's question.
Okay, yeah. We have time for 2 more questions.
Here is another
so
one.
There's one girl here.
Professor Cabezudo, first of all, thank you for inspiring speech about the importance of education and its history. We got a lot of important information here. As you're focused on education and pedagogy, you might be familiar with the method of Montessori teaching, do you?
Yeah.
The question is, can this method be spread into Asian countries? And how will it be effect on culture and norms of Asian countries?
Yeah, can you repeat the question clear to all?
Oh, of course. There is one method that is called Montessori method. And if it will be spread into Asian countries, will it be effect on culture aspects and norms?
Yeah. She is talking about the Montessori schools. I don't know if you know the name. It is a very important. You say yes. Do you know that? Have you been in a Montessori school? No, but you know about them. Okay. And what do you know about them? Can you give her what do you know about the Montessori school and who was Maria Montessori? Can you tell?
Oh, well, I know that in these schools, kids learn by themselves, and they are surrounded by many stimulation. I'm a musician, so I know that they can play whatever they want. They can, I don't know, paint, and there is no a teacher. It's like a guide. I think they call them like a guide instead of a teacher.
Yeah.
So, yes, what I know.
Well, you know quite a lot. Maria Montessori is a very important Italian pedagogue of the end of the 19th century, 20th century, so before the Second World War. And she developed a very free way of learning, that it is very many things, including what your colleague has said. So the question is if the Maria Montessori methodology is against the cultural roots. Is that more or less the question? No. Yeah, well, you have seen that one of the issues that we have as knowledge is to respect cultures and to respect diversity. So on the opposite, the Maria Montessori methodology, that is mainly from the primary school and the little ones, the kindergarten, so that teaches freedom and criticism, etc., of course, respects the identities and the cultures. So I would say that just the opposite. It would be very good to introduce the Montessori methodology in those cities or places or whatever where you have very many cultures, because it is very respectful. And I think that the Montessori, from where are you coming, lady? Where? Kyrgyzstan. I think that there are not Montessori schools there. There is. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, because they are all over the world with the methodology and the relationship, etc. It's very free. Yeah. So my answer is yes, and they respect the cultures more than the other ones, by the way. I
have a question. Thank you.
It's okay.
All right. Please, my question is, with a student-professor relationship that you made mention of, outside your profession, if a student in mathematics and a professor in mathematics, now, what will a student in mathematics give to a professor in mathematics? You are saying you're supposed to learn. The professor is supposed to learn from the student, whereas the student must learn from the professor. But there is a student in mathematics and a professor in mathematics. What at all will a student in mathematics give to a professor in mathematics?
You are a professor now, or you are going to be a professor?
I'm still a student.
You are a professor. You are a student.
Yes, please.
You are going to be a professor.
Hopefully.
Oh well, I hope as well. All right. You know, your question remembers a question of the mathematics that it was a professor in my school many years ago. So I'm going to start with that story and then answer to you. So it ends the dictatorships and came the democracy. So came the curricula design on human rights. And so we were so happy, the social sciences girls in general, that we have that. And then came the mathematics professor, like you, that was a professor of mathematics, physics, and chemistry in the school. It was a high school, no? And then the professor said, more or less the question as you, he was young like you, not so handsome, but young. What was a pity? Okay, because there are not very many men in the school. Yeah, all right. So, and the professor said, ladies, what hell I am going to teach in mathematics about this new issue of human rights? I understand that you in history can teach about that, and you can do that in literature because of the books that were forbidden, and now they are not forbidden, so we can read another books. And you can do all that, but what hell, he repeated that, I remember, can I do in mathematics? So it was the same question. And then we say, listen. So now, listen, like this. You are a good guy. You are a good professor in mathematics. You like your student, don't you? Yes, yes, I like very much. He was young, he liked very much. The students like you. Yes, he said. I don't know if they like mathematics. I am worried about that, but they like me. Okay, so make your class a human rights class teaching mathematics. If you respect the students, if you explain clearly, if you understand their problems, is one day one have not studied and he always studied, and then you ask him, why you don't study today? I have a problem in my house, blah, 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 you are interested. Then you are dealing with human rights in mathematics class. So, for you and for all of you, to teach social justice, to teach peace and non-violence is not to make these horrible things take like subjects, but to create what we call the learning atmosphere in a friendly atmosphere to learn. If you are capable to make your mathematics class a friendly place where you enjoy when you learn mathematics, you have put the things in their side on human rights. That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Do you understand me? I answer.
I do. Another question to what I said.
I guess we'd have to cut you out. And
sorry, it's a quick one to that.
He has another question.
There would be another question, and that's the last one.
It's a quick one to the answer she gave.
You could talk to her during the week. She's here till 21st if you want to continue the conversation.
If you find one, by the way, that I didn't.
All right, thanks. It's a date.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
no. I'm going to remember, don't worry.
Okay, he's already got the mic.
Yeah. So, thank you very much for your lecture. By the way, I'm Adam from Morocco. So, I want to ask you about the role of youth in installing new curriculums or pedagogies or strategies for education. Back home, I live in the capital, Rabat. We have such a fancy building of a fancy council called the Council of Higher Education of the Kingdom of Morocco.
In Morocco?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And we have a certain youth consultancy council that I'm part of. And whenever we get to the meetings or forums or wherever it's going on in that council, it's always just consultancy rules. It's always just like,
tricky, eh?
What do you think about? Yeah, what is your idea?
And then they do what they want.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm asking you, in your experience, in your global experience or international, is the departments or the institutions that you worked with, do they give to the youth executives roles or like voting roles in the instauration of those new education curriculums? Because sometimes there is like those people who are 60 years old or 90 years old. I'm not saying that they're not creative enough, but I don't know, sometimes their strategies doesn't match with our young aspirations. And when those curriculums are down to us to university, we kind of find them old-fashioned or boring, or it doesn't match with us.
Yeah.
And I have a second question, is about education in general. Is that what I noticed is that recently why we study is finally to get a job. Is that like most of us, we just have this major or whatever, depending on the market job and just to get a final job. So I had this radical idea that maybe if there is no more exams in education at all, people wouldn't think about just studying to pass the exam, but studying really to get like to get the knowledge or to get the skills, because like you are not just studying to pass an exam and you would forget about it. And that's what happened to me many times. I would just prepare the night before, go to the exam, pass the exam, have a good night, and that's it. I would forget about it. Yeah. But if there was no exam, I would come because it interests me and I would learn about it. Yeah. I have just a little story to end it, like following Aida.
Just 30 seconds.
Yeah. Because of the importance.
Another story.
To modify strategies or curriculums include like to appropriate culture of countries. Back home, we went to a certain village, and it was an American organization that I'm working with, volunteering. We went to this village, and there was for the women, so they can have water, it was far from the village. They have to walk to it. Yeah. And what we did with the Peace Corps organization is that they brought water to the village. They made kind of a fountain where women can get the water easily. But 2 days after, we came in and we found out that it was destroyed. And we kept looking, why that water fountain was destroyed. We find out that the women themselves destroyed that fountain. Why? Because that walk that they had to go to bring the water, it was the only way or the only time where they are free, they can walk together, and maybe sometimes they can get to meet other men than arranged marriages. So that's how it's so important to know the culture before installing any programs, because sometimes we hear like programs coming from Geneva or something.
I think we really like that story.
Don't worry.
Alicia, your last
about
answer.
the youth. No, but there is an important question on the youth that I have not developed, and it was my mistake here, that it is for all, no? That it is the role of the youth in the human rights education. That make a change as well. Usually, the curricular design came from the top to the bottom. And in the human rights curricular design, it was promoted, and it is like that the teachers and the students and some experts that sometimes are called, if they are interested in specific themes, this is happening, for example, in my work today, that they are interested in specific themes, and then we call an expert to do that. But the youth tell what they want. So the trick that I would say to handle the youth, that it is to call them to come, but then you say that you hear them, but then what they say don't appear in the papers. Is it that? No. So that is the traditional use of the youth. Nowadays, the youth students and the youth groups are very well, how can I say, considered in the education programs. And in general, in all the countries, democratic countries, of course, open countries, open-minded, which doesn't mean democratic. Sometimes they are democratic but not open-minded. We have very good examples nowadays of that. But then these youth come, they were consulted, and they are part of the group that have to write the new curricular design, the decisions, etc. So the youth is going and going, taking seats and taking decisions that they haven't. Of course, in human rights education, they are principal actors, and really we did. And in the case of Morocco, that it is a little bit, I worked there, so I know very well, in Egypt and in Morocco, so it is very traditional, and the Ministry of Education, very traditional, but you have some centers, and I can contact with them because they are my colleagues, the Center for Democratic Education and Citizen Education in Marrakesh, that they do extraordinary projects, very good ones, and the youth are part of them. So youth is taking position, in saying, here we are, we want to say this, and please try to make with us. So that's it. Right. There is another question there, but I'm going to have a coffee. No, it's impossible. Thank you. So, flowers, sweets, presents.
So thank you again for all the energy that you've kept up for all this long duration.
They need energy, or they are sleeping somewhere.
Yeah, there are people who've got a lot of new ideas, and like I said, Professor Cabezudo is in Ilma now till the 21st. You can still engage with her during that time, but she's quite busy, and you've got to get hold of her. Okay, so as a token of our appreciation, we have flowers and
a butterfly.
And an album from photographer Till Maya. So please accept that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Look at the butterfly, show to the student. I don't know what this is. Are they sweets?
Yes.
I don't know. What's that?
Surprise.
Ah, well, then I open.
Okay, so now at 3:30 p.m. we have the opening of the Barrier Zones exhibition in the city center. So please make your way there. I think you've got 15 minutes. So thank you.
Ah, the book.
Also,
Good idea. It's a book of
keep an eye on the fact that the World Food Festival happens this afternoon at 4 p.m. We'd love to see you there, as many of you as possible, with traditional dress and traditional food. I'm really looking forward to that event. Tomorrow you have your first group work, as well as the Fair, an opportunity to get to know the work of several local, regional, national and international NGOs, and hear about their work and about ways to get involved. So I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible there. Thank you.